This is one of those parts of the syllabus where really the skill of memorization is more important than really your ability to understand complex issues. Because there's this great big list, long list of things that you need to know. You need to know what the marketing process is. So starting with the situational analysis, which is done by using a SWOT and by looking at the product life cycle. Then moving on to market research, doing some research about what the market, is like and what the customers and all that sort of stuff, as well as establishing marketing objectives. So what are the goals that you have for that market? You then need to identify who your target markets are and develop marketing strategies, based on those target markets. Stage 6 is the implementation of the marketing plan and monitoring and controlling it as you go. So that involves developing a financial forecast and comparing your actual results to what you planned. And then in the end, there has to be this process of revising the marketing strategy. So find things that didn't work and revise the actual strategy. So that's something that you just need to memorize the entire list. You don't necessarily need to memorize the numbers and the A and B and all that sort of stuff. That's just one way of looking at it. But that is the list that the syllabus has, and you do need to memorize it. But we also need to be able to go through each one. So starting with that situational analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats make your SWOT analysis, so SWOT. A strength is something like having a unique product, something inside the business that's good. A weakness is something inside the business that's bad, so it's using old technology, something like that. An opportunity, like a competitor is struggling, something outside your business that is a good opportunity for you. And threats usually come from either the government, like the mining tax, or from other businesses like cheaper substitutes. The strengths and weaknesses are internal in that the business has some control over what the strengths and weaknesses are. So it's not complete control. So don't write in your thing, okay, internal ones the business has control over, external ones the business has no control, because that's too simplistic, right? Internal parts of the SWOT, internal strengths and weaknesses, the business has some control, but not absolute control. If you think of, say, one of your weaknesses are your workers, you don't have absolute control over how good they are, how smart they are, how many good ideas they come up with, things like that. And you may not have an unlimited budget to hire whoever you want. So you only have some control over those strengths and weaknesses. The external things, the opportunities and threats, the business has little control over. So if you think of the threats like threats from the government, if you look at something like the mining tax, a mining company does kind of have a lot of control when it comes to the government. If you just ask Kevin Rudd, so businesses might have a little bit of control. If a competitor's struggling, maybe the business had a little bit of control, a little bit to do with that competitor struggling. So internal usually means some control. External usually means little control. For a small business, basically none. But for a larger business, they can actually exhibit some control over those things. Why do a SWOT analysis? Well, it's so that the business can build on their strengths, take advantage of opportunities. So those are the positive things. But they also need to make sure that they target their weaknesses. If the workers are the weakness, they need to target that. And prepare for any threats that are upcoming that will usually come from the government or from competitors. The second part of a situational analysis is that product life cycle. So if you just draw a quick graph, you go sales, time, right? So sales on the Y, time on the X. You need to just know that shape, right? That shape is the important thing. You need to know what the things that go underneath it are. So we start with the research and development stage, where you're not really selling anything. Then you've got launch. Then you go into growth, maturity, saturation. And those are different stages. But really, those lines are really where the corners happen, right? So as you go up to the launch, everything is kind of, you might be selling bits and pieces. You might have what they call a soft launch, which is they don't just, hammer everyone with marketing and do it all worldwide. You might decide, okay, we're just going to have limited markets and see what the customers think and get some feedback, and then we're going to launch it, in a larger way later. So that's why you might be making some sales during that early stage. You might have, early products and beta versions of software and things like that. So you really need to know that that stage is going to be pretty slow. But once you get to that line where it turns into the growth stage, it turns, right? So it kind of becomes an S shape at that point. And then you go into growth where you've got rapid growth, and you have to deal with things like running out of stock and stuff like that. Then it goes back the other way, and it kind of starts to level out again, where you get to the maturity stage, and then you've got the saturation stage where everyone's kind of got it. So you're going to start losing sales, and that's where it turns all the way around. Now, the important thing at the end is to make sure that you cover the decline, right? But it could also be an extension. So you could have an extension of the product life cycle, or you could actually decline. You could go into another product life cycle, maybe in a different market or something like that, or you just kind of let it be and say, okay, well, we made all the sales off that product. We need to think of a new idea. Now, why does this matter? Why does that diagram matter? Well, it matters because at different stages, you're going to have different strategies. So this matters especially if you get that section 3 question where you have to recommend strategies. You might have to recommend strategies to a business, to a hypothetical business. What do we do? And you need to find out, you need to state, okay, this business is obviously in the saturation stage because of this and this and this reason. And then you need to make a choice about what they need to do. You're supposed to be the expert. You're supposed to be recommending strategies. What do they do? If they're about to go into decline, how do they extend it, right? So you need to know what strategies are used at what different areas. So research and development, obviously marketing is involved right from the start about the design, what the requirements of the product are, who's going to be using it, and so it could be things like, doing some market research and finding out how big people's hands are if you're making phones and things like that. Once you get to the launch stage, you need some heavy promotion to build awareness. And this is a loss-making activity because you're not going to sell as many, you're not going to sell enough to really cover that launch. At the growth stage, your sales are up, so you start expanding to new groups of customers. Your early adopters have already all got it. So how do you reach those new groups of customers? Maturity, you're going to be needing less promotion, and that's going to be where you're making the highest profits because you're going to be needing to do the least amount of marketing and you're going to be making a large number of sales. Once you get to saturation, the sales start to fall, and the business really has to start making that choice. Where is the product going to go from here? So a lot of businesses, they do this product life cycle well before they actually have the product. So if you think of something like the PlayStation 3, when they first came out with it, they said, all right, the product life cycle of the PlayStation 3 is 10 years. And people at Star went, 10 years? No way, no way. But it's been going for quite a long time, and they're still just finding different ways to use it and different things that they can do, and cutting costs and cutting prices and all that sort of stuff, because it has reached that saturation stage. So where do they go from there? They go to either the decline, so they just go, okay, we're just going to take it off the market, and hopefully replace it with something else, some other bright idea that they've had. Or you can try and prolong the life a little bit longer, and that's an extension. That's extending the product life cycle. How do you do that? Well, one way is to make some little minor changes to it. Another way might be to find other markets. So you'll find with a lot of products that they go, okay, maybe it's not selling in Australia anymore, but Australia's a pretty rich country. Why don't we just go, okay, well, now we're going to make it the next big thing in Kazakhstan, or Mongolia. We're going to expand to other countries and find other markets where this is going to be a novelty to them. But you have to realize that that can be very expensive. Right? Most people will just, automatically go, all right, the red one or the green one. I'm going to go the green one. The green one's better. It's not really for that. It's just saying, okay, you can extend it, which is, I guess it's green. But you might just decide it's not worth it. Right? You might go to all this trouble to make these changes, to release a new version of it and all that sort of stuff, or to go to new countries. And it might have just been cheaper to go, you know what, scrap it. Let's finish this one and let's come up with a brand new idea, and work on that product and that product life cycle instead.